Shabbos Daf Yud continues the discussion of things which you may or may not have to interrupt when the time of tefillah arrives. The first one that is being discussed here is that if you are in the middle of a meal, then the Gemara will discuss if you're in the middle of a court case. Along the way, we will discuss the chashivas of approaching tefillah dressed properly, and whether tefillah is more important than learning, or learning more important than tefillah. Also, whether judging a case is more important than learning, or vice versa. Then the Gemara will discuss the proper time for eating of people who are judging, and of course the proper time for eating for everyone else. The Gemara will then go back to the halacha of the bathhouse and discuss whether tefillah is permitted in the bathhouse or a bathroom and the circumstances in which it is or it is not. Then we'll have a list of a few statements made by Rava Bar Mechasya Omer Rav Chama Bar Giyura, one of which is about receiving gifts and whether or not you have to notify the person who gave you the gift and how we learn it, and a couple of questions on that. Then some advice from him about how to treat your children evenly and what city you should live in to be safe. So let's begin the Gemara. The Gemara previously said that once somebody has begun a meal, he does not have to interrupt in order to daven mincha, even if all he has done so far is to loosen the belt in those areas where they needed to do so in order to begin a meal. So now the Gemara has two questions on this. The Gemara says, why should you not have to say mincha now if all you did was loosen your belt? First of all, what's it such a big deal? So refasten your belt. What's the problem? Second of all, you could daven without a belt. What's the whole issue here? So Gemara answers because there is a pasuk that says, "Hika nekrasa lekecha Yisrael." You should be prepared to meet your God Yisrael. So this is certainly answering the second question, that you definitely have to be wearing a belt because you have to be dressed properly in order to approach HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the tefillah. According to some Rishonim, it's also answering the first question, that it is a big deal because it's not just enough to tighten your belt, you have to straighten everything you're wearing and prepare yourself. So it's not a simple thing to just begin tefillah, and therefore you do not have to interrupt your meal in order to do that. It is a major operation. Now the Gemara records how several Talmid Chachamim used to prepare for tefillah, and it's interesting, there are two aspects of this. On the one hand, somebody should dress finely in order that he greets HaKadosh Baruch Hu in his finery. On the other hand, one wants to prepare as a servant before the master and shouldn't prepare too strictly. So the Gemara says that here's how certain Chachamim approach it. Rav bar Rav Huna wore fine footwear, and he said this is a fulfillment of Hikar Nekras Hashem Leikecha. However, Rava would take his cloak off. He didn't want to look too chashav. He wanted to appear like a servant, like an eved. He wanted to appear humble. Rav Ashi said that I noticed Rav Kahana would have both customs depending on what was happening in the world. If there was a lot of suffering in the world, then he would dress simply like a slave, like an eved, preparing before his master. He would take off his cloak and he would clasp his hands in front of him when he began at tefillah. However, if there was peace in the world, so then he would dress finely and he would say, "This is Hikayin Lakras Hashem Leikecha." The Gemara now discusses which is more important, to be involved in praying or to be involved in learning. So Gemara says that Rava observed that Rav Hamnuna was busy in long tefillah, so he said to him, "Why are you occupying yourself with tefillah? That's worrying about this world, the things that you need in this life. That's a brief, transient life. You should be busy with your learning. You shouldn't interrupt your learning for tefillah." So I said that Rav Hamnuna held that there were times for learning and there was a time for tefillah, and one did not interfere with the other. Similarly, the Gemara says Rav Yirmiyah was sitting in front of Rav Zera and they were having a discussion in halacha and became late to do tefillah. So Rav Yirmiyah stopped the discussion and he began to pray. So Rav Zera said to him, somebody turns his ear away from listening to Torah, his prayer is rejected as well. Okay, now the Gemara goes back to the Mishnah. We were discussing when is officially the beginning of various activities, that it's considered as if you've begun them and therefore you do not have to interrupt them in order to begin tefillah if the time for tefillah arrives. The next one on the list is beginning of a trial, and then the Gemara will again discuss if a trial is more important than learning or less important. So the Gemara says, first of all, when is the beginning of a trial? What's called that the trial began? The Gemara says it's two things, Rav Yirmiyah and Rav Yaina. One said it's from when the judges wrapped themselves. The judges wore a talis over their heads so they wouldn't be distracted and they could focus on the people that were involved in the dispute. And the second way of defining when the entire has began is when the disputants actually start to state their case. The Gemara says no disagreement between the two. The one who says that it's when the judges wrap it over the head is when this is the first case that they are hearing for the day, so they have to wrap. So when they start to wrap, that is when the case is considered to have begun. However, if it's along the list of the cases that they have in a row on the docket, so they're already sitting wrapped with the talis over their heads. So that can be when it begins, and therefore in a situation like that, the case begins when the litigants begin to speak. Now the Gemara discusses which is more important, to judge cases or to learn. So the Gemara says that Rav Ami and Rav Asi used to sit in the base medrash between the pillars, holding up the ceiling. And every hour they would knock on the door, and they would say anybody who has a case that needs to be tried should come, meaning they interrupted their learning in order to ask if anybody needs a case to be discussed, which is pretty clear that that's more important. Now the Gemara has a slightly different approach. The Gemara says Rav Chizda and Rabbi Bar Huna were sitting judging cases all day. And the Gemara says that they felt weak. So Rashi has two understandings of this. Either it's because they hadn't eaten all day because they were busy judging, or they felt weak, they were upset because they hadn't had a chance to learn for themselves. They were just judging all day. So the Gemara says that Rav Chia bar Rav Midifti said to them that you don't need to do that, and he quoted a brisa as follows. It says, "Vayamed Moshe, Vayamed ha'om al Moshe min ha'beker ad ha'erev." When Yisro came to Moshe in the midbar, the desert, he saw that Moshe was sitting in judgment all day, and the people were standing all day. So the Gemara apparently felt that Rav Chizda and Rabbi Bar Huna were doing the same thing because they learned from that. So the Gemara says that Rav Chi was explaining to them that that's not really what happened. Rav Chi said it's not what was going on. They weren't actually sitting all day. Do you think Moshe would sit all day? He couldn't, either because he needs to eat or because he needs to learn, depending which version of Rashi's pshat you hold like. So what is the pshat really? Why does it say that they stood on him all day? To teach you that somebody who's judging is as if he was a part of the Kadosh Baruch Hu in the creation of the world. Over there it says Min HaBoker Ad HaErev. In the creation of the world it says Vayi'er Vayivoker Yom Echad. So the two are linked. Judging is like helping with the creation of the world. So according to Rashi's pshat, that they were upset because they hadn't eaten, they felt weak because they hadn't eaten, so he was telling them you don't need to sit in judgment all day because that's not what Moshe Rabbeinu was doing. According to the pshat, that they felt weak because they had had a chance to learn, he was saying you see that the judging is also a great thing because it's like creating the world. You don't have to be upset that you haven't had a chance to learn. Now the Gemara asks, what is the right time for judges to actually have their meal? So Rav Shesha says that they should eat at the regular time for the main meal of the day, which Rishonim say is in the 6th hour of the day. Now the Gemara brings a pasuk that supports this. Two pasukim actually. One says, Oy vey to you, woe is to you whose kings act as a teenager and the ministers eat in the morning. But happy are you to the land whose king is a man of dignity and whose ministers eat at the proper time, meaning the proper time, the correct time when most people eat their meal, which is the 6th hour. Then it ends off in strength and not in drunkenness. The Gemara says that means strength of Torah and not drunkenness of wine. Now the Gemara quotes a brisa which says that when many people used to eat. So the Gemara will end off by saying that most people eat in the 4th hour, but people who are gluttonous eat in the 1st hour unless they have other preoccupations. So the Gemara says the 1st hour of the day is mealtime for Ludim. Ludim were a cannibalistic tribe who are gluttons, and they ate right away, first thing in the morning. 2nd hour of the day is a time of meal for thieves. They are also gluttons, but they were up all night, so they sleep the 1st hour, they only get to eat the 2nd hour. The 3rd hour of the day is those who inherited a lot. They don't have to work, they don't have to worry, they didn't work for their money, they're gluttons, but they only eat in the 3rd hour. 4th hour is the time for laborers, the Gemara says, and the 5th hour is for all people. The Gemara says, hold a second, that's not right. Rav Papa said the 4th hour is the time for all people. So the Gemara switches it, the 4th hour is the time for all people, and the 5th hour is the time for laborers who have to work in the morning. Now 4th hour is defined as the end of the morning and the beginning of noontime, which is why it's the right time for the main meal of the day. Now the Gemara says that Talmidei Chachamim eat in the 6th hour, and anybody who's later than that, it's like throwing a stone in a bag. That either means it has no nutritional value, just like a stone, or it means that it actually is harmful to the body. Now Abaye says it's only if you didn't eat anything in the morning, but if you ate pas shachar, you ate some bread in the morning, that's not a problem. Now the Gemara goes back to the subject of the bathhouse, which was in the Mishnah, as far as things that a person should not do in the beginning of when he's close to the time of tefillah. The Gemara says, halacha here, Avad Bar Ava says, a person is allowed to say tefillah inside a bathhouse. Now the Gemara is going to challenge this from a brisa. In order to understand this, we need a hakdama. The bathhouses in the days of Chazal consisted of 3 rooms. The innermost room was where the actual bathing area was. Everybody in that room was undressed. In the middle room, people would come out of the bath area and they would dress simply, and then they would go out to the outer room where they would finish dressing. Now the outer room everybody was dressed, the middle room some people were dressed and some people were undressed, and the inner room everybody was undressed. So the Brisa says the following halacha. It depends which room you're in as far as the halachos of saying Shema, saying Tefillah, greeting somebody with the name Shalom. Shalom is one of the names of Hashem. About putting on tefillin, whether you're allowed to put them on, whether you're allowed to leave them on, or whether you have to take them off. So the Gemara says depends which room you're in. If you're in the outer room, so then of course you're allowed to do everything. You're allowed to say Shema, you're allowed to say Tefillah, you're allowed to say Shalom Aleichem, you're allowed to put tefillin on, you're allowed to take tefillin off. If you're in the middle room, where some people are dressed and some people are closed, so you have a middle halacha, you're allowed to greet somebody by saying Shalom, but you should not say Shema, you should not say Tefillah, you don't have to take your tefillin off, but you shouldn't put your tefillin on. However, in the inner room where everybody's undressed, you shouldn't do any of these things. You should not say Shalom, and you shouldn't say Tefillah, Shema, you have to take your tefillin off, and obviously you shouldn't put your tefillin on. Now, this is contradictory to the halacha of Rav Ada bar Ava, who said that you are allowed to say Tefillah inside the bathhouse. And the Gemara's understanding that means anywhere in the bathhouse, not just the outer room, which is not really called the bathhouse. So the Gemara says, okay, Rav Ada bar Ava was referring to a bathhouse that was empty. There's nobody there. The Gemara says, well, that's not true either. Because the halacha, we have a statement of Rav Yasi bar Chanina, who says that a bathhouse and a bathroom have the halacha of a bathhouse and a bathroom, whether they are functional or not functional. Even if there is actual people there, or if there's actual fecal matter in the bathroom, either way, it's a bathroom. And the bathhouse is a bathhouse, so all the halachos still apply. Gemara says, okay, Rav Ada bar Ava was referring to a new bathhouse, which had not yet been used as a bath, and the question was, when you designate something as a bathhouse, or same halacha would apply to a bathroom, does that count or not? So the Gemara says, well, how could Rav Ada bar Ava be so sure? We have a question. Ravina asked, if you designate something as a bathroom, does that count for the halachos of the bathroom beginning right then, or does it have to first be used? So if that's what Ravina said, Ravina was referring to a bathroom, so the same thing should apply to a bathhouse. It's the same halacha. Gemara says, no, Ravina was asking about a bathhouse. Ravina was asking about a bathroom. A bathhouse, it definitely does not apply because it's not quite as disgusting as a bathroom that is far more vile than a bathhouse. Now the Gemara notes, we said that the halacha is that you're not allowed to say Shalom Aleichem. The Gemara says this is support to the statement of Rav Huna, the name of Ula, that said a person is not allowed to say Shalom in a bathhouse because it's the name of Hashem. How do you know it's a name of Hashem? Because it says Vayikra Loi Hashem Shalom. The pasuk in Shoftim says he called Hashem Shalom, which shows that Hashem's name is Shalom. One of Hashem's names are Shalom. The Gemara says, hold on a second, but that means that Hashem's name is also Heimanusa, which is like Emunah, which means faith, because it says Hakel Haneman, a pasuk in Devarim, Hakel Haneman. So Gemara says, so does that mean you're not allowed to say Heimanusa in the bathroom or the bathhouse either? People used to say that often when they made a deal, they would seal it with Heimanusa. I guess there was a lot of business deals happening in the bathhouse. The Gemara says, you can't tell me that it's that you're not allowed to say that word, because we have a statement of Rava bar Machasi in the name of Rav Chama bar Gurya, that you are allowed to. The Gemara says, no, Heimanusa is not the name of Hashem. When it says Hakel HaNeman, it's not saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name is Neman, it's saying that a trait of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is that he is Neman, he is faithful. How do you know? Because if you look at the Targum, it translates it as Elakah Mehimna, the faithful God. So you see, it's not a name, it's a description. However, Hashem Shalom is a name, that's not a description. Now, having said one statement over here, in the name of Rava bar Machasi, in the name of Rav Chama bar Gurya, the Gemara is going to launch into another list of things which that chain of transmission said. A number of random statements, but are linked by who said it. So the Gemara says, first of all, he said somebody who gives a gift to his friend has to tell him about it. He has to know. Either he has to know so that he should appreciate who it's from, because the point of the gift is to bring a closeness between the two. We're not talking about charity here. We're talking about a gift. Or he has to know, might mean he has to notify him in advance, so he shouldn't be embarrassed when he receives it. So how do you know that you're supposed to notify? Because the Gemara says when the HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Klal Yisrael the gift of Shabbos, he said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Matana Taiva Yeshi Bevis Ganazai, a famous Gemara, I have a wonderful gift in my treasure house. That's saying the Shabbos, I want to give it to the Jewish people. Leich v'hidiyim, says the Mishnah, go and tell them, says the Pasuk. So here we see that you have to notify a person before you give them a gift. Now, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel expressed this as follows. Somebody gives bread to a child, which is a gift to the child's parents, so he should inform the parents that he gave this gift. Now, how is he going to inform them? If he tells the child to tell the parents, obviously the child is not with the parents at the time, so the child will not be able to convey the message correctly. So the Gemara says he should do as follows. He should rub some oil on the child's eyes and put some eyeliner around his eye. I guess that was a common thing with children. And that way the parents will see that something was received by the child. They'll say, hey, where'd you get that from? And the child will say, oh, from this and this individual, and he also gave me a piece of bread to eat. Because that was in the days when you could trust people. Today, if you see a kid walking around with oil between his eyes or eyeliner around his eye, you're going to think somebody pulled shtick on him. He did some kind of kishuf, some black magic, and therefore you shouldn't do that. So what you should do, you should spill some of the food that you're giving him on him. You should rub some on him so that he has a mess. And then the father will see him and he'll say, hey, where'd you get that? And then he'll say, oh, I got it from this and this individual who gave it to me, and then the gift will be aware of him. Now the Gemara asks, hold on a second, how could it be that if you give somebody a gift, you have to inform him? When Moshe came down from Har Sinai, it says that Klal Yisrael was afraid to approach him because his face shone. But Moshe did know that his face shone. So if Hashem gave him the gift of a shiny face, he should have told him about it. Gemara says, no, you only have to tell a person if you're going to give him a gift if he won't find out otherwise. But something which is going to become evident at some point, so you don't need to. Moshe's shining face was going to become evident when everybody else would see it, so therefore Hashem didn't need to inform him. So Gemara says, but then how come he had to inform them that he was giving them Shabbos? Shabbos they would find out about. As soon as they have to learn Hilchos Shabbos, they know that they got a gift called Shabbos. Gemara says, okay, they would know about Shabbos, but they would not know about the great reward, the schar of Shabbos, and that's what he needed to tell them. Now the Gemara has an interesting story related to the subject. Gemara says that Rav Chizda, who was a kohen, was once walking holding two matnas kahuna from a slaughtered ox. There are certain, the Zeraya, the L'chaim, and the Keva, which is a jaw, a foreleg, and the stomach of cows, of any kosher animal, is supposed to be given to kohanim. It's chulin, anybody's allowed to eat it, but it's a gift that the owner gives to kohanim. So the Gemara said it was only in Eretz Yisrael. It's a machlekes if it was in Eretz Yisrael or out of it, but today the halacha said it's only in Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara says that Rav Chizda was walking with these things, and he said, if anybody could tell me halacha that Rav said, Rav was Rav Chizda's Rebbe, if anybody could tell me something new that I haven't heard in the name of Rav, I'll give these things to him. And who came up to him? No. Then Rav Bar Machasi, and he said, I have the following thing that I learned in the name of Rav. Somebody gives his friend a gift, you have to tell him about it, like it says, you should know that I am Hashem and makes you holy. So Rav Chizda was overjoyed and he gave him the gift. And then Rav Bar Machasi said to him, are you so happy that you got teachings of Rav? Why is it such a big deal to you? And Rav Chizda said, yes, I'm so happy. So Rav Bar Machasi said, that's because he's your Rebbe. Like there's a statement that I also heard from Rav, that somebody who has a garment of fine wool, it's precious to him. So you see, if you have something, it's precious to you. So you are a Talmud of Rav, so you have his teachings, so his teachings are precious to you. Rav Chizda said, oh, Gevaldik, you told me another thing in the name of Rav. That's even better than the first one you told me. If I had any more gifts to give you, I would gladly give it to you. Okay, then it goes back to the list of things that we said. We heard in the name of Rava Bar Mechaskia, in the name of Rav Chama Bar Goria, in the name of Rav. He said the following thing. A person should be careful not to treat one son better than any of his other sons, because look what happened. Yosef was treated better than the brothers by Yaakov, and all he gave him was 2 slams weight of fine wool. That's a special shirt that it was made out of. Rishonim say this is an exaggeration. It weighed more than that. It wasn't that little. And because of that, we ended up in Mitzrayim, because of the jealousy that the brothers had, and they sold him, and the whole story. Next thing that we have from Rav Mechas in the name of Rav Chama Bar Goria, in the name of Rav, somebody should always try to live in a place which is a new town. You should live in a new neighborhood. Because if it's new, so then there aren't too many Averos that happen there. A city is destroyed when it fills up its quota of Averos. So if it's a new place, there aren't too many Averos, then you'll be able to live there safely. How do we learn that? When Lot was being saved from Siddim, he said to the Malachim, I'd like to run to Tzayar, and he said, I want to go there because it is close and small. Now, what does it mean close and small? It meant physically close and physically small. Why do I have to tell them that? They can see that for themselves. He meant that it's close, meaning that it's just built. It's a new city. It's close in its time of when it was settled. And it's small, that it has a small amount of Averos. And the Gemara says that's what he meant, and therefore he wanted to go there because he would be saved there because its quota wasn't filled up yet. Now the Gemara says, we'll show you that Tzayar is actually a younger city than Shechem. Shechem we know by calculating the years of the people who were alive and who built it at the time was 52 years old. And Tzayar, he said, Yimolta no shama. No is Gematria 51, to show that Tzayar is 51 years old, and therefore it's a little bit younger. Now the Gemara says that the time that Sidon, which was around for 52 years, the time that it had peace was 26 years, meaning half of it was 52 years, half of it, 26 years, was the time of peace, and half was the time of war. If you look at the Psukim, it's obvious. Why? Because it says, the Gemara explains, 12 years they were serving Kedar La'imar, and then 13 years they rebelled, and in the 14th year, Kedar La'imar attacked them. So you had 12 years and 14 years of war, and that's 26 years altogether. You only have 26 years left for peace.